Vince Marino. It's Vince Marino. Vince Marino. Reporting live in Palm Springs, Vince Marino, KMIR News. Eisenhower, Nixon, Ford, they all visited here after their time at the White House. But for the first time in history, an outgoing president will head straight for the Coachella Valley the moment he becomes a private citizen. And all indications are that he will be here at Thunderbird Heights. Just to kind of run over what we know about the arrest, we do know that the Riverside County Sheriff's Department reached out to Mexican authorities to get their help in finding and arresting Davila. I'm here at the Safari Mobile Home Park in Palm Springs, and at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, water came rushing down the mountain and into the street here. If you look over my right shoulder, you can see this is what was left behind. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Could you just tell us what was this like earlier today? And where did the water come up to? Could you show us where the water came up to?
Well, it came up above this.
It came up above this step here?
Yeah.
This is where that big rig slammed into the tour bus. I want you guys to take a look at this. You can see what these vandals are doing to the cars in this neighborhood. Police say it looks like they're going around and they're using a pellet gun to shoot at car windows. At least 10 cars were hit. Gildardo Davila, the man accused of shooting a sheriff's deputy last week, is behind bars.
On June 1st, yesterday, Davila was located in Mexicali, Mexico. And with the assistance of the Mexicali Police Authority, Davila was taken into custody.
The deputy involved in last week's shooting was identified as Deputy David Solis. He is a 7-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department. Deputy Solis was released from the hospital last weekend. Sheriff Stan Sniff said the bulletproof vest Solis was wearing likely saved his life.
There was no penetration into the chest cavity, but he is a very, very lucky individual and never ended up having, he was shot basically, and he's left-handed and shot in his gun hand, so he was badly wounded in that. And basically, I won't recount how many rounds were fired, but it was a lot of rounds fired at him out of a handgun.
The 33-year-old deputy was shot in the chest, arm, and hand, doing serious damage to some of his fingers. But he is expected to make a full recovery. Investigators, meanwhile, still have work to do.
There are other individuals we seek to identify that may have taken part in this instance by assisting the suspect evade capture.
Davila was taken into custody by Mexican authorities without incident.
There was no fight, and actually he was described as quite stoic, and we have not gotten any statement up to this point. There was no resistance, no issue.
They come for the music. They come for the party. What they don't come for is this.
It's crazy. It's too early to have this much traffic.
But it's all part of the Coachella experience.
Love it. This will be my second time, and I'm really excited.
Before the Coachella campers reach their dusty homes for 3 days and 3 nights of music and whatnot, they will have to survive the traffic. Sometimes a nightmare for locals trying to get somewhere.
It's every year, we're used to it.
But something Coachella heads put up with, especially if you've traveled all the way from Portland in your pal's beat-up SUV.
It runs good, surprisingly.
Perhaps not surprisingly, before the music starts, the traffic stops. So case in point, here I am on Avenue 52 trying to get to the next part of my story, and in 10 minutes we've moved maybe 10 feet, and that's not even the worst of it. No, the worst may be that some Uber drivers say they're boycotting this year because of long delays to the Polo Grounds in the past. One posting online, quote, "Based on the past 2 years, I say skip it."
I'm going to drive in Palm Springs, and I'm going to drop them far away, and then I'm going to go back to Palm Springs.
Wristband, thank you. You see some wristband. Everybody got a wristband? Thank you.
For those who are finally here,
We made it. Yeah. We made it. Yeah, we all made it.
perhaps the wait was worth it. For others, like locals, their relief comes after the last song is sung.
Sorry, I gotta go.
13 bodies lined up along the highway. Others on board, injured, some seriously. They were a long way from home, but right in our backyard. It was a Sunday morning on the 10 freeway just west of Indian Canyon Drive. The U.S. Holiday bus was heading back to Los Angeles from the Red Earth Casino in Thermal. At 5:17 a.m., the bus slammed into a big rig.
This is the first collision of this magnitude and this horrific I have ever seen in my career. There are not enough words to describe what was out there that day. Once the sun came up and you really saw the totality of the horrific collision, it's when it just really hit you.
Exactly what happened that day is not entirely clear. The National Transportation Safety Board did not list a cause in its preliminary report. There were no tire marks to indicate the bus driver used the brakes at all. Investigators believe he may have fallen asleep.
Fatigue was a factor with both parties.
Traffic breaks on the freeway during work with power lines could have been a factor. A year later, several victims' family members are still reeling from the loss of their loved ones.
During the day, I was finding out. I was hoping it wasn't true until I saw her. So she passed away.
It was supposed to be a time to unwind. Instead, Rosa Ruiz was killed in the crash.
All the time I used to take her with me, and when I go to that place now, when I used to take her with me, it's not there. So I always remember her every time.
Armindo and Rosa would go to the casino together, and together they shared fond memories.
I took her too. When I used to go work in the casinos, I took her with me. So she was so happy. You can tell that she called every friend and tell them that she was with her brother, and she was happy. Every time she come out with me, anywhere that I took her, she forgot about everything. She just want to be with me.
Several of the survivors and the victims' families are suing Caltrans, Riverside County, the city of Palm Springs, and the city of Desert Hot Springs. They are also suing the estate of the bus driver and the driver of the big rig, Bruce Guilford. Guilford is now under arrest, accused of vehicular manslaughter, the narrative changing from a year ago. Initially, he was described as a hero.
What a man. He was injured himself. He got out of his truck and helped others.
After the crash, former taxi driver David Hirschfield took Guilford to a motel. On the way over, he noticed something strange.
He stuttered. He seemed quite nervous. He mentioned that he was scared of the retaliation from the family members of the deceased.
Did anything about him seem odd? Did he seem impaired in any way? Tired, perhaps?
Oh, he was exhausted. Oh, yeah. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He was just exhausted.
A year later, a memorial stands in the spot where 13 people lost their lives. Their family members still searching for answers. Nicole Roeder has not walked a day in her life. For her, getting around can be a challenge. And while she does have a disabled parking placard, sometimes it's useless.
I see students parking in these spaces all the time, and they say it's their mothers or their grandmothers.
But for Roeder, having access to a disabled parking spot is not something she takes for granted. And watching others take advantage of the blue cards can be frustrating.
It makes me sad and sort of angry and frustrated because those who are differently abled work twice as hard.
A new state law will now require the DMV to make it more difficult to get a disabled parking placard. Law enforcement statewide is also cracking down, and nobody is better at that than the Indio Police Department.
443-1039.
At Coachella 2017, Indio PD popped 84 people for fraudulently using the blue parking passes, and they don't wait for a festival to crack the whip.
It's a daily problem.
Officer James Koyanagi is assigned to the traffic unit.
Copy. Clear for a placard number.
And he says it happens all too often.
It's a definite huge problem.
Koyanagi says he tickets people every day for parking in the disabled spots.
What are you guys doing in that handicapped parking spot?
And in the short time I spent with him on a ride-along, he cut 2 tickets, each with a minimum $250 fine.
And this is a city citation. You have 21 days to respond. This is a parking citation. Okay, you cannot be in a handicapped spot. When I drove up, you guys were stopped here. Okay, you cannot be in a handicapped spot.
It's not something you plan for. And when a car came crashing through the Baskin-Robbins in La Quinta, store owner Carrie Freeman was at a loss for words.
We're pretty sure it hit here first, and then sort of hit the two dipping cabinets there, and kind of pushed everything back.
The driver walked away from the crash, but his car pinned a store clerk to a counter she was working on.
She was taken to the hospital, and she just has some minor cuts and bruises, and a little sore today, but she'll be okay.
After shutting off the electricity to her store, Freeman realized the clock was ticking on the ice cream. And instead of tossing what was left of the 31 flavors, she decided to donate it to local nonprofits, turning melting ice cream into melting hearts.
It was really nice at the end of the evening, after looking at all the destruction, to be able to look at a truckload full of Baskin-Robbins boxes that were going to the less fortunate. So it was a good way to end a bad day.
The ice cream was donated to a local Boys and Girls Club and the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission, but the bulk of it came here to the Galilee Center in Mecca. And in a couple of days, more than 200 people from low-income families will be able to have all the ice cream they can eat.
No one, I think, on this side of the valley has that kind of ice cream for the people. It's something very special for them, and I think that it's going to be their first time eating some kind of ice cream like that.
Even though the restaurant went from an A to a B rating, it doesn't seem to be affecting business too much. Take a look at the parking lot. It's jammed, and so is the restaurant inside. Customers say they don't mind the rating because they figure most kitchens have issues anyway. Well, imagine taking this building and putting it right here in downtown Palm Springs, obstructing this mountain view. Now, this isn't to scale, but you do get the picture. The casino on this barren plot of land in Cathedral City is only one part of the downtown entertainment district, and if you look across the street, discussions about another major development right here are underway. It includes a hotel, a residential area, and a commercial zone. People who are opposed to the ordinance aren't really worried about marijuana shops showing up here in what's considered the Rodeo Drive of the desert. They're more concerned with marijuana products showing up in schools and getting into the wrong hands.